the price is going up on Friday. We went way past the 50, we said, and we wanted to get as many people in at the lower price. This isn't always just some big money grab. We want to get as many people in as possible. We are having this at a resort and casino. It is not cheap. So, but we do want to get as many people in at the reduced price as possible. There is the sales rep track that, and I want everybody to hear this, is that during that sales rep track, we talk about mindset. We talk about they setting their numbers and then going through the entire process all the way through the world famous roadmap. But there's a reason why half of the room are sales leaders and owners. It's because of the sales leadership track. And so 6 times while those sales reps are competing to be the top rep in the room, we're going to take those leaders into another room and we're going to be discussing the rehash. This is the rehash that all the largest companies in the United States use. And we're not only just going to say, hey, this is what it looks like. No, we're giving you the scripts and we're giving you the manual so that you can take it back with you. It's not something you got to sit there and videotape and hope that you can remember. We're leaving the manual for you and you can take it home with you. How to hold your reps accountable, how to have sales meetings, how to work your sales reps numbers and your numbers for success. We are going to show you how we took a company from 6 million to 12 million in 6 months using nothing but numbers. The Roofing Contractor magazine actually jumped on that and did a whole story on it. But I don't want to take up any more time. I want to bring our special guest on, and please help me welcome the Jeremy Mitchell. Man, how are you, brother?
What's up, Chuck? I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, good, man. I got this new mic system and I'm still trying to figure it out. So
no worries, man. I was trying to send you a message, text me.
Yeah, I think everybody was. I'm getting all these things. So, man, can you tell everybody without me gloating, because I can go on 15, 20 minutes about how great you are. Can you tell everybody a little bit about you and kind of where you came from? I'm going to toot your horn a little bit here, and everybody's heard of Leaf Filter, and there's a lot of sales reps, and you were at the top of that leaderboard.
I was pretty close to it. I was the 7th highest income earner out of 2,000 sales reps there at Leaf Filter last year, year to date before I ended up leaving. And that was only on 433 leads. So, and the reason why that's important is because like stats don't pay the bills. And the way that Leaf Filter's compensation plan was structured, it was based on profit. And so what I do is I figure out how to maximize the compensation plan, how to charge the most amount of money, which Leaf Filter isn't cheap anyways, and being effective at closing at higher prices than other reps were. So that's why I got paid more than other reps got paid.
Awesome, man. So let's kind of back up and jump into what you're doing right now. You have sales pride.
Yes, sir.
And you embody coaching. And I love that you do this because you're in with Tony Robbins and who are some of the other people that you have worked with as far as getting their information and really building yourself up so that you can help others?
Yeah, I can go in order of like recently. Josh Lyons is a guy that sells high ticket coaching. He's earned $100K a month in commissions. And so I've been in his program, working with him pretty much exclusively for the last year. Prior to that, I worked with Jeremy Miner, was in his inner circle twice. And that's where I really kind of started to take my leap there, was learning NEPQ. And then Andy Elliott, I was in his inner circle group. It's called the Brotherhood, and these are programs that, I paid $50K so far this year with, Josh Lyons, paid 50, almost, well, it's probably $35K with Jeremy Miner, paid almost $50K for Andy Elliott, throughout the year, with all doing a podcast with him and everything. And then, it was $85,000 to join the Platinum Partnership Program with Tony Robbins, plus the travel. Like my little trip I took with my girlfriend in Maui last year in October was an additional $20K on top of that. So yes, I believe very heavily in investing in myself, because I started off, in sales in 2008 and couldn't scratch $1,500 to $2,000 a month. And had I not invested in myself, I wouldn't be making $50K in a month in commissions, as an example.
So we
without that.
discussed this at Top Rep, when we talk about defining your success, and there's a number of people that come to the boot camp that they're like, hey, man, my company's not going to invest in me. I'm going to buy my own ticket. I'm going to get out there. And they light it up at the company. And we always see the company the next time. It's funny
Yeah.
how it works. But there is a reason why, and I hope any of you that are sales reps that are on right now, that you understand the biggest part of this is he invested in himself. When he says he was the seventh highest income earner,
Yeah.
it's not just because he took what the sales managers there said and put it into play. All those folks are sitting at the bottom of the leaderboard. The other guys that decide to invest in themselves, read up, study, and really put themselves up front and put their own learning ahead of their wallet, I like to say. Those are the people that are crowded at the top of the leaderboard.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't believe in yourself enough to invest in yourself, then why should anybody else believe in you enough to invest in you?
Exactly.
The way I think of it. Yeah.
So let's get into your sales philosophy.
Okay.
Obviously, you don't get to where you are today without having a sales philosophy. So what is your sales philosophy when you're going to start teaching and training people?
I would say it's more of a Socratic philosophy, which is learned a lot from Jeremy Miner in the NEPQ. Basically, telling isn't selling is what I tell people a lot, and it's asking questions that get the prospects. It's almost like I play a game. You know, the game of Jeopardy, where the answer comes up on the board, and then you have to answer it back in the form of a question. That's
Yeah.
kind of the game that I play with myself. Is like, if I get to the point where I want to be kind of pitchy and I want to pitch and I want to say something, I always think to myself for a split second, okay, how can I form this into a question that'll get the prospect to say what I want to say? And I can give you an example of that when it comes to like gutter screens or whatever as an example, if you'd like. But that's basically it. So for example, let's say I go out to a customer's home and I'm meeting them out in the front, and I like to price condition a little bit early, and if they really push me on it, like, well, how much is this going to cost? I say, hey, my average sale here in Oklahoma is like 5 to 9K. If they start flipping their, I don't know if I'm allowed to curse on here, but
Go ahead.
if they flip their shit and they're like, well, if it costs that much, you might as well get out of here. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's no problem. I'll tell you what, if you come back to the car with me, I'll kind of, give you a card or whatever, right? Get them to come back to the car with me. And I'll do like a little miniature pitch just to kind of, backstep a little bit. And I'll show them some products and I'll say, I'm just curious, before you called us out here, how much were you hoping this was going to cost? And they'd say, oh, I have no idea. I go, yeah, I know. I didn't know what it was going to cost before I started working here either. But how much were you like hoping it was going to cost? And they'd say, well, I don't know, 2 or 3 grand. I'd say, okay, that's a fairly reasonable number. If you would have told me 200 or 300 bucks, I'd just go ahead and pack my stuff and go. But, for like 2 or 3 thousand, this is about what you would be able to find on the market. And I'd show them a cheaper product. And I'd say, now, if you invested in this product, like, do you feel that this would keep all of the leaves and debris from getting inside your gutters? And I'm asking them to, in an obvious way, to where it's like, yeah, no. And I'll go, well, hold on. Why do you think it wouldn't though? I mean, and they'd say, well, because the holes are too big. And I'm like, right. So imagine you bought this and like it took, I don't know, a couple of years and then it got full again. If you invested 2 or 3 grand in this and like 2 or 3 years from now, it was full again, like, how would you feel looking back on that decision to invest in that? And you go, oh, it's a waste of money. That's exactly what I wanted to basically say. 2 or 3 grand is a waste of money because you're not going to get shit for what you want to get, right? And it's about switching their thinking process from price based to results based.
Now, I want everybody to just take everything that Jeremy just said. And I know that some of you are like, oh man, those are great questions. Those are great questions. The reason why Jeremy was so successful is not always the questions. It's how he asked the question.
Right.
Did you get the sense that he put his pauses in there? He lowered his tone, the way that his face looked. That is why the questions work. You got to
Right.
ask the questions,
Right.
but it's how Jeremy asked the questions that made him successful with the questions itself. So when we say that top reps, they ask 5 times more questions,
Right.
again, it's not just the question.
Yep.
Sometimes it's the tone of voice. If I were to ask Jeremy, I said, hey, I want you to do the exact same thing you just did. I want you to speak a little bit faster. I want you to raise your voice. You
Hmm.
just think he's an asshole.
Right. Right. Yeah, and when you just say it kind of flippantly, like, okay, so if you invested $2,000 or $3,000 into this, and 2 or 3 years later it was clogged, like, what would you feel about? How would you feel about that investment? Oh, well, I don't know. I mean, if you ask it very flippantly, you're going to get a very flippant response back. That's why you got to slow it down. And the thing is like, when I was in high school, as you can tell, I'm kind of a boring guy. I'm very monotonous, and so I have to put out a lot of effort to try to have some facial expressions and body language and the tone of voice. I try to modulate it a little bit, and it's just one of those things where like it requires a lot of effort, and you have to be consciously aware of it. But then after a while, when you practice it so much, it becomes second nature, and you're able to do it relatively unconsciously.
So I want to stay on this because there's a lot of people here that they want to sell gutter guards. They want to sell the right gutter guards. They want to sell it for the right price. Please put in I want anybody that is selling gutter guards, go ahead and put in the chat, I sell gutter guards, stuff like that. Please put in the chat because I want Jeremy to see how many people are on that actually sell gutter guards. Now, there's a lot of contractors across, and they sell the gutter guards that their suppliers supply,
Right.
which are usually the flat gutter guards that
Hmm.
everything sits on top of.
Yep.
Now, when we want to sell the right gutter guards and we want to sell it at the right price, because everybody wants to complain that Leaf Filter sells it for so much, it's because they can, and it's not just because of their advertising. If it was because of their advertising, they'd sell it for half as much. It's because they're sending people like Jeremy out that know how to sell it for that price. Am I right?
Yeah, it's what I would say to capitalize on top of that, because I have this conversation with roofers or gutter guys or whatever that sell gutter guards, and it's like they think that Leaf Filter just is able to get away with it because of their name brand recognition. Oh, well, everybody knows Leaf Filter. Well, if that was the case, they wouldn't need me.
That's
They would
right.
just be able to put it on a website and say, "Hey, it's 38 bucks a foot. How do you want to pay? Visa or American Express or whatever, right?"
Yeah.
So, so it's their selling process. That's what I really think. It's not even so much the reps that they're sending out, but the reps all have a system that they follow, a closing sequence, if you will. That is what, in my opinion, has allowed Leaf Filter to be able to grow into the business that they are today, is because it's a duplicatable system. It's kind of like, I don't know about you, Chuck, but like when I was young, starting to grow up in sales, the idea of network marketing appealed to me because of the income, right? But what was also appealing about network marketing is there's a easy system that if you just send 100 messages to all of your friends and family, somebody's going to buy, and then they're going to join, and then they message 100 people. If everybody just followed the system, they'd get the results, right, to a certain extent. So in my opinion, that's what separates or differentiates Leaf Filter, is that they have a duplicatable system. So now you can take pretty much any geek off the street like me, teach them the system, plug and play, and then go get 10 of you guys. And now you're all selling $1 million a month in gutter screens, in a little old town like Oklahoma City selling 15 million a year in gutter guards and gutters.
You know what I love so much about gutter guards? For one, they function. If you get the right ones, they function correctly,
Hmm.
and they're easy to install.
Yeah.
And the homeowners typically can't see them.
Yeah.
It's like a bath. Every time they go sit on the toilet, they're critiquing your work 4 or 5 times a day.
Hmm.
With
Yep.
gutter screens, they can't do that. They can't even see them. So it's not like they can sit there critique your work. They just wait for the pine needles to clog up a crappy gutter screen and then start to complain to you.
Yeah. And highly profitable.
But you get the right one and they're highly profitable. That's exactly
Yeah.
right. They're
Yep.
highly profitable.
Yep.
And I have some people say, I can't believe some people can get away with selling them that way for that much. It's like, if they work, they should be sold that way.
Right.
If they don't, then the price that you're selling at is probably okay.
Right. Yep.
So
Exactly.
gutter screens, I have loved to sell gutter screens. Or any type of gutter cover that works. I'm a huge fan of. And so I've seen the ones that work, ones that don't. And so when you are out selling these gutter covers, and anything, I'm gonna let's go to just about anything that you sell that's high ticket like this. So what else is your process when you are going through your sales process? What does this process look like? I'm sure that there's some sort of presentation involved, a price presentation, and then how you deal with your objections.
Yeah, I mean, obviously every like in-home sales company, Renewal by Anderson was who I got started with. Renewal by Anderson, Safe Step walk-in bathtubs,
Yeah.
all of these big companies have the same process where it's basically here's your introduction rapport. There's a needs analysis or inspections or whatever. You price up, you build out the job, you price it, you do your demonstration. All that stuff is pretty cut and dry.
Yep.
In my opinion, it's Leaf Filter's closing sequence that is what makes them. And some people will complain that, oh well, they start up here and then they drop and discount down to here. Well, yeah, the bad ones do, right? But when you're able to offer standard discount and overcome objections and close at a high price like I was able to, as an example, which is how I coach my people to do, then you don't have to keep diminishing your value and dropping all the way to the floor where you started at 10 grand and now you're walking out the door with a $3,000 sale. It just doesn't seem credible, right? So in my opinion, it's the closing sequences.
And so what is your take on this when whether you're working with a bath person, whoever, what does your closing sequence look like?
So
How does this run down?
yeah, so basically it kind of starts with like a pre-close, right? It's a trial close, right? And mine is a little bit different than the way the company does. So I can give you an example like verbatim of what the company would say and then what I would say and how I've integrated other people into it, if you'd like, if that'd be
Yeah,
helpful.
please.
Okay. So like the Leaf Filter closing pre-close would be like, so John Mary, this is something you're wanting to do eventually. If not now, then sometime in the future, right? And they're like, yeah, you get the customer to say yes, right?
Mhm.
And then you're like, all right, so what we do is we give you a price that's good for a year, and I'm going to show you how you can save a lot of money by considering getting started on it sooner rather than later, because whether it's the total price or a low monthly payment that fits in the budget, is there any reason why you wouldn't want to get started on this today if it's affordable? Or besides price and payment, is there any reason why you wouldn't want to get started on it? And so the way they train it is just like there's so many trigger words in it, and then there's and they say it so fast that the prospect is just basic, and the prospect's not really listening to what you're saying,
Right.
right? And then there's like I said, the trigger words. So I add in like neutral languaging from Jeremy Miner, right?
Mhm.
Using instead of saying today, I want to say sooner rather than later, as an example. I don't want to say any words that are going to trigger them, and then I don't want to sound so assumptive either, right? So another mentor that I liked was the guy that wrote Never Split the Difference, Chris
Yeah,
Voss,
Chris Balls. Yeah.
yeah, FBI. I think you did something with him recently, didn't you?
Yeah, he's my
Yeah.
coach. Yeah.
Yeah. So I like his I like some of his approaches, and you'll recognize some of it. So I'll go into it now. So I'll say, so I'll ask them some questions, make sure that we're on the same page, that they like what we're doing. And I go, so correct me if I'm wrong, Chuck, but it sounds like this is something you're wanting to do eventually. If not now, then sometime in the future. Am I way off base or reading you wrong?
No.
Right. Oh, all right, cool. So since it's not a matter of if you want to do it, but more like when, what we do at Leaf Filters, we give you a price that's good for a year. And I'm going to show you how you can save a little bit of money by considering getting started on it sooner rather than later. Because whether it's the total price or maybe even like a low monthly payment that fits in the budget, like if it's affordable, is there any reason why you wouldn't want to get started on it if it's affordable?
No.
So I hope let me know. I'd like to hear in the chat if people could hear the difference between the two, right? One is your stock, verbatim, sounds scripted type of thing, right? The other one, because it's delivered slower, and more methodical, like it's in the tonality and all that, makes it sound like it's not so scripted. Hopefully, I mean, hopefully, if I executed halfway decently,
No,
right?
this is good. And I'm glad you're going through this because we just got off of a big group coaching. And one of the big questions was, is the day of discount no longer works? And the way
Mm,
that most people give it today, it doesn't work.
yeah. Well, how are they giving it today?
Right. It's all the initial visit discount. A lot of the window companies are still doing the IVR, initial visit
Yep.
rewards.
Yep.
And people are hip to that and they just don't appreciate it. And so the way that you just gave it, it's very lighthearted. There's no threatening language. There's
Hmm.
a what we call the soft landing.
Mm.
You
And
know,
what do you feel like was? In I want to hear if you picked up on it. What do you feel was the soft landing there?
you're looking for the word no.
Interesting, because I did that to start in the very beginning, the no base question, right?
Yeah.
So what I did, and I'll just break this down for everybody. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate the comment. So first things first, I said, correct me if I'm wrong, right? Because like Chris Voss says, people love to correct other people, right? And so I'm asking a no base question and I'm wanting them to correct me. And I'm going to say, and then I'm using a label. It sounds like, so I could be wrong, right? I'm using a label, but it sounds like this is something you're wanting to do. And then I also incorporate a little bit of Jordan Belfort. Like I use the reasonable man tone. I'll say, if not now, then like sometime in the future. Like I'm trying to push it off to like, I'm not trying to say you need to do it today. Right. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like, and I'm using the facial expressions and all that, it sounds like this is something you're wanting to do eventually. If not now, then like sometime in the future. Am I reading you wrong? Again, that's a no base question at that point, right? And I say, okay, so since it's not a matter of if, but when, what we do is we give you a price that's good for a year. And then another thing that I made the difference between what Leaf Filter did and what I do is instead of saying, I'm going to show you how to save a lot of money, right? Grand showman here, right?
Yeah. The wow, the sham
Yeah,
wow guy.
Sam Wow guy, right? But wait, there's more. What I do is I say, and I'm going to show you how you can save a little bit of money. So I'm basically making it sound like if they do move forward today, it's not a huge discount. So like when I'm doing my same day discount of 15%, I go and so this price is good for 30 days. Give me a call back, next week, next month, next year, no problem. As long as our prices don't increase, like this is what the price would be for a year. Now, earlier you had mentioned that like you seemed like you're pretty serious about getting this started. What we do is for people that are really serious and they're like, no, I'm doing it. I want to get done. The most affordable price. It's not a huge discount. It's only like 15%. So on a project like this, it's only like $750. It's not a lot. But then that would bring your price down to just this. And then I would, anyways, I'm switching gears because I'm talking about closing and the pre-close here. But so instead of saying I'm going to show you how to save a lot of money, I say I'm going to show you how to just save a little bit of money. And again, people want to correct you. So when I do say in the closing part, it's not a lot of money. I mean, it's only like $750. So it's only like $750. They go, well, I don't know about you, but that's a lot of money to me. It's like I want them to say that. I'm downplaying it. So Jeremy Miner teaches about like if you downplay something, people will upplay it. And if you upplay it, people will downplay it. Because if I say, I'm going to show you how to save a lot of money, it's $750. And they're like, that's it. Like I thought it'd be like a couple grand.
Yeah.
So that's how I break down that second sentence is, okay, I'm gonna show you how you can save a little money by considering getting started on it sooner rather than later, because whether it's the total price or a low monthly payment, and then I pause for a little bit and I start the last sentence with this. I say, if it's affordable, so I'm pre-framing the subject. If it's affordable, is there any reason why you wouldn't want to get started on this? I don't say today or now or anything like that. I just say, and I end with, if it's affordable. Because if I say this too quickly, people will hear the last word that comes out of my mouth and they'll be like, oh, yeah, if it's affordable. right?
Yep.
So that is, in my opinion, that's kind of what caused the soft landing, if you will.
I love this. I like the downplay because we talk about the pendulum. So I'm going to swing the pendulum this way, and I'm going to
Mm,
watch to see how far you swing it that way as the customer. Because it's like putting the toe in the water. I'm going to put my toe in the water on something that has a soft landing and see what you do with it. And so I love that, man. That is fantastic. I like your take on it too.
thank you.
Such a different and easy to understand, easy to learn take on things.
It's got to be, you got to be able to make it duplicatable. It's got to be easy, right? And then it just takes a little bit of effort there's a little bit of scripting in this. So like one of the things from Josh Lyons, what I've gotten is there's certain parts of your presentation that needs to be scripted, like very, very little. If you're talking for an hour, maybe 5 minutes of it is scripted. Out of everything else is just about asking questions based on what the prospect says to you. That's why, for as an example, like when you said it was a soft landing, I asked you the question like, well, what about it was the soft landing? Because that's what you gave me. It's like taking what the defense gives you and then expanding upon that. And
Right.
that's totally unscripted because you said it, right?
Right. And it's kind of like the same way as mirroring, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
You asked it a different way instead of just using the last three words that I said, but no, that was fantastic.
Thank you, sir.
And you mentioned scripting. So, and this seems to be a trend as well. So I've been working with some coaches. We're coaching some coaches right now, and they are talking about scripting. And I says, here's the thing to understand. We teach this even to our clients that there's three levels to this, that you have competency.
Hmm.
This is just learning it, and you
Right.
learn the script because here's the thing with scripts. And it was, I think it was on our Rilla podcast yesterday where what's his name? Doug Wyant was saying that everything's scripted, the songs that you listen to, the movies you watch.
Hmm.
And if they
Yep.
weren't, they would suck.
Right.
So we put the scripting in there. You master the script with your tonality and expression and emotion, but then we go pro. So just
Mm.
like you mentioned that now we're going to take that script, we're going to make the script small so that you can round yourself with that script and actually listen to the homeowner and make that script your own.
Right.
But again, you have to have the script to begin with. You
Yeah.
have to have a
The
foundation to work
framework.
with. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it's kind of like, again, Jordan Belfort, the straight line persuasion thing, right? You have
Yeah.
to have something. If you go off in Pluto, you got to be able to come back and get grounded to again, right?
That's exactly right.
I do agree with that. It's just, again, in order to go pro, you need to be able to like be a human and think
You
for yourself and not just be like, all right, what question am I supposed to ask next? So that's my thing.
And that's when we say we're going to go pro. We allow them, and by the time they get out of their training, and we some of the folks on here we've been talking to about our new 30, 60, 90. Me and Mike just got done recording that yesterday, and you're going to see this as you're getting through your 90-day, where they need to start going pro and having that their own way of thinking. We're going to take them from thinking like a robot, because that's what we're the foundation, to
Yep.
where we're going to kind of hand them their mind again and say, okay, go out and make it work.
Right.
So it's, yeah,
Make it
absolutely,
your
man.
own. Yep. I agree.
So what else, when we're talking about what made you take that leap and start investing in yourself, and when you started to invest in yourself, you've already talked about Jeremy Miner. I love Jeremy Miner. I myself had invested in the training. It's really, really good on just understanding how to ask certain questions. One thing that I really like about Jeremy, he's taken the this is going to sound really weird, but he's taken spin selling and made it sexy.
Yeah. So the thing that I think what your question was, just to make sure if I'm correct, is like what took me to like start
Yeah.
investing myself. So I always liked Tony Robbins. My dad growing up, now it's like story time with Jeremy. So here we go. Buckle up. So when I was a kid, I remember my dad was listening to Tony Robbins cassette tapes back in the car. And so I always wanted to see him in person. I saw him in person at the time I was like 365 pounds. My first event, I wanted to see him live in person because, you know, he's getting older. Who knows how much longer he's going to be around, right? So I was 365 pounds. I was pretty broke at the time. I was working, just started working for Leaf Filter, maybe making 5 to 10 grand a month. All right. So I could, and I was in a miserable relationship with like a lady that was an attorney, and, you know, so a salesman and attorney both like to argue, right?
Yeah.
And so it was a great toxic relationship. And I was suicidal on antidepressants and everything. I probably should have started with this from the beginning, but anyway, long story short, I went to this first event and I started to make some changes in my life. I realized that I had control over certain things. Like I didn't need the antidepressants anymore because I went through like learning his whole uh, triad thing, like about how I can manage my mental state by my physiology, my focus, my language, and all that. And then I went to I lost like 30 pounds or something. It was very minimal change, but I made some changes in my life and was making a little bit more money. By this time I was on pace. I was making 6 figures, like 10 grand a month. And then I went to the last day and Tony was like, you know, you've learned how to walk on fire. You've learned how to crush your limiting beliefs. You've done all this stuff. Like, what could possibly fuck this up? And it was like, you know, it's going back to your old lifestyle and just falling into your old habits and routines. And he said, if you want to keep this momentum going, you got to hire a coach. So that was my first time investing in a coach. And I had already planned on hiring her beforehand, but this just synced it in for me. And I paid her $6K. And this was in November 2019 was when I went to UPW in Miami. Unleash the Power Within, by the way, shameless plug, like go to that event if you haven't yet. Okay. You learn to walk on fire on the first day. And once you do that, like you feel pretty much unstoppable, and you can tap into that anytime you get down. But I digress. Hired her, and she goes, all right, cool, Jeremy. So like, you know, on your wheel of life exercise, like what was your best area of your life? And I was like, oh, my income, my career. And she goes, okay, well, how much money are you making? And I go, you know, she said, what was your scale on a 1 to 10? I was like, oh, 9. And she goes, oh, really? How much money are you making? I go, I'm making about 8 to 10 grand a month, you know? And she was like, she laughed and she said, really? Like that's a 10 for you? And it was like a gut punch, right? I was like, oh man, I thought I was doing pretty good here. And she was like, I know people that do that in a day. And then so she got me to come back the next time with like what I should be at. And so she goes, okay, what's the most money you've ever made? I said, well, I've made 20 grand a month with Leaf Filter. And she goes, okay, perfect. She was like, the reason why you're settling for 8 to 10 grand a month is because like that's what your identity is. And she said, you know, it's like a thermostat. When it gets too warm, you make more money than that, you cool down your activity that you're doing, right? If you're not making as much money, you turn on the heater and you crank up the activity so you can get your income back up to here. She says now, she was like, you get out of life what you tolerate. That's a Tony quote, right? And she said, right now you're tolerating making 6 figures. She was like, I want you to raise your standards, come short of hook or crook. And she goes, what that means is short of being a hooker and turning tricks on the street corner or being a crook and robbing you. You know, this is your standard. No matter what, you're going to double your income from 8 to 10 grand a month to 15 to 20 grand a month. All right. And so I was thinking, okay, this is December now when I hired her, December 2019. I'm thinking, okay, we're in Oklahoma. Most of the leaves have fallen off the tree. How am I going to make 15 to 20 grand a month? But my first month I made 14.5 with her, right?
Wow.
And so I was a little pissed off because I didn't hit that 15K hook or crook standard, right? And she goes, well, Jeremy, you know, first of all, you were making 8 to 10 grand a month. You made 14.5. You need to celebrate that. I was like, okay. So I celebrated it. And then she says, now go do it again. And I was like, oh crap. Like normally I'd have a good month and a bad month. Like this was my income, right? And then so the next month I made 15.5 in January, even colder, less leaves and trees, right? And so now I'm happy because officially I hit my 15K hook or crook standard. But then you say 15.5 plus 14.5 added together is 30K divided by 2 months. That's, hey, I'm averaging 15K a month. And at the time, another guy that played a big role in my personal development is Bob Proctor.
Yes.
And at the time, I was reading the Think and Grow Rich book, and I was listening to Bob Proctor, and I kept hearing in my mind, he would say, "What do you really want?" You know, and I'm like, I've been settling for 15 grand. I really want to make 20 grand. And it was February of 2020. You know what happened the next month, right? So I'm like, and February is a short month. So I'm like, all right, I'm all gung ho. I'm going to make 20 grand. And sure enough, made 20 grand in February. So if you add up what I would have made, 8 to 10 grand a month over 3 months would have been 25 to 30 grand. Well, I made it was like 50K because I made 15K, and then 20K. So that was 50 grand. So now you're telling me that I invested $6,000 to make an extra 20 to $25,000 more than I was on pace to do had I not hired that coach. Sold. I was sold on coaching because that 6K investment paid me an extra 20 to 25K. And from there on, every time I've looked into coaching, it's all about like an ROI. Like my dad always told me growing up, there's no better investment than in yourself, because you can invest in a house and it can be taken away from you, foreclosed, government, whatever. You can invest in a lot of different things and you can lose it all, stocks, whatever. But once you invest in your knowledge and your skills, nobody can ever take that away from you.
So somebody just, it was Paul that asked the question here. What was the mind shift that helped you get to those numbers?
So the mindset shift for me was raising my standards. Like, no more am I willing to tolerate just making 8 to 10 grand a month. Like, come short of hook or crook. I am a 15 to $20,000 a month. I deserve that. That's what and I'm no longer willing to settle for just making 8 to 10 grand a month. That was the shift. That was one thing. The second thing was I started watching my numbers every single day. So like on my calendar, every time I got done with a sale, I would calculate my commission. I'd take a screenshot of it. I'd send it to my girlfriend to be like, "Hey, look how much money I'm making," right? And it was kind of like an accountability kind of thing, plus to show her that like I could provide for her and all that. And it was a celebration. It was a way for me to pat myself on the back and celebrate those successes, because what's not celebrated doesn't get repeated. So you have to find a way to celebrate when you have these small wins, even if it's just a couple $100. And then I would add up my commissions at the end of the day, and I'd have a goal. This was a shift for me. Like if I made 252,000 on 433 leads last year, that means I made $589 per lead I ran. Like, companies want to track net volume per lead issue. Well, I want to track net commission per lead issue, right? So every day, if I got 3 leads, I'm like, well, I need to make $1,800. Did I hit my mark? And I would track my numbers every single day. And then at the end of the week, I would track my numbers for the week. And then I would extrapolate that over the course of the year or month or whatever. And am I on pace to hit my goal? Come short of hook or crook means that if you're not reaching your goal, you got to step it up and go, figure out what you need to shift, what you need to do differently. So hopefully that answers Paul's question.
So this isn't something that you and I talked about, because we didn't really talk about anything I just asked you, "Hey, would you come on?"
Right.
And so we didn't sit here and say, "Hey, we're going to talk about coaching." And I really want to dive into this.
Perfect.
Because for one, there's a lot of fake coaches out there.
Right.
Oh man, we see them come in, and especially in like the roofing industry, it's like there's 2 comes up a day. And I was just texting back and forth with a good friend of mine. He says, "Here's another one." And here's the thing that you need to understand when you are going to go out and get a coach. The very first question you should ever ask a coach is, who's their coach?
I like that. I do ask people that. So that's good. I like that. That's not the first question I would ask, but I do definitely, it's definitely one of the questions I ask.
There's a lot of things that you really need to dive into before you get a coach, because we get a lot of people, because there's no doubt that we're one of the higher priced coaches out there, and so we get you usually about 2 or 3 coaches in. You know, you tried the smaller guys or gals, whoever, and you kind of worked you and they're like, all right, you know, I realize that I need this. And so we kind of get you, we have to move some stuff out of the way to where all of a sudden you're going straight up. And I'm sure that you've seen this as well. But, you know, what are some of the things that when you're getting coached or you're going to get that new coach, what are some of the things that you ask to determine, is this 50, 60, $100,000, because that's the last check I wrote, but $100,000 for that new coach? How, you know, what are some of the questions that you ask?
Well, I'm glad you said that. So first thing is like I'm just going to tell you a quick little story about like what caused me to start my coaching business, because probably people said the same thing about me when I first got started of here's another coach, right? Another sales coach, you know. And so here's what it was. It was like I was inspired by Tony Robbins, and I was at a UPW, and he said, you know, what's a skill that you want to master? And I thought, I want to master sales. And I've been in sales since 2008, right? So 16 years, something like that. Mathematician. I don't know if that's right. I think so. 16 years, right? And so I thought, yeah, I want to master sales. And he goes, okay, so there's only three things you need to do to master sales. Is number one is find somebody who has achieved the results that you want to accomplish, and hire them, go work for them, hire them as a mentor, do whatever you need to do, get in proximity. And what's interesting is Tony's always talked about modeling. When he talks about his ultimate success formula is get clear on the result you want to achieve, take massive action, have sensory acuity to see if you're getting closer to the goal and adjust the action. And that's the 4-step formula. But the 5th step that he doesn't tell you about, or tells you later, is modeling, because you can collapse those time frames and you can figure it out on your own, button your head up against the wall, or you can hire a mentor and collapse the time frame. Yeah. And so number one was modeling. So going to the first question I would ask somebody is, what have you accomplished? Why? Like, again, I want to know why I would hire them. The reason why I hired Jeremy Miner was because he made $2.4 million a year in average commissions. And I'm like, I hadn't even scratched 10% of that. So like, yeah, he has what I want to do. I want to model him. Okay. Yep. Step number one. I've done that for all my coaches, right? I've hired coaches that I wanted to model in some form or fashion. Number two, a pillar of mastery that Tony taught about was basically massive action, but he calls it total immersion, right? So you hire this coach and you just, like Grant Cardone calls it, be obsessed or be average, right? It's just become completely obsessed. You know, watch all their content, show up to all their trainings, ask questions, be fully immersed in this. Don't just dip your toe in the water, fully commit to this, right? I was like, okay, yeah, I've done those things. Okay, cool. Number three is okay. So I'm sorry, modeling, and then spaced repetition. Sorry, spaced repetition, meaning that you don't just watch it one time. You watch the trainings over and over and over again. And the more you watch them over a long enough period of time, you're going to, mastery is inevitable. If you have the right mentor, you take enough massive action and you give it enough time, you're eventually going to master this skill. And I'm thinking, I've done all three of those things. And then I thought, so what does it take to be a top 1% person? And I'm thinking, okay, there's 2,000 sales reps at Leaf Filter. And at first I was feeling like maybe I wasn't worthy of being a coach, because I'm like, I'm not Jeremy Miner. I haven't made $2.4 million. But then I was like, okay, out of 2,000 sales reps, I'm the 7th highest income earner. I'm in the top 1/3 of 1% of income earners. And what matters most to salespeople, the stats or the income? The income.
A little bit of both, but yeah.
Well, I mean, stats, here's the thing. If you focus on protecting your commissions, the stats will come, is my thinking. It's not always the other way, especially with the way Leaf Filter, their compensation plan. I could close 100% of my leads and still make zero money at Leaf Filter. So no, sir, thank you. I'd rather pay my commission.
Yes.
So with that being said, like those are some of the initial first question I would ask is like, what have you accomplished that would make me want to model you and hire you, right? You have the largest you have the largest home improvement sales training organization in North America, right? If somebody wanted to hire Andy Elliott, he's got one of the fastest growing sales training
Yes.
organizations, right? Like if that's what I want to model, I'm going to hire Andy Elliott, right? But if I don't want to sell cars, Andy Elliott, he sells cars and all that stuff, and that's all fine and good, but that's not industry specific to roofing and everything that I do. This is why I want to hire Chuck Thokey or whatever, right? Hey, I sell gutters, Jeremy, like that's why people hire me, is because of the industry experience with selling gutters specifically, you know? And so does that answer your question? That would be my like first question that I would ask.
No, that's huge, and I totally agree with that. When we're talking with others about this, we've done it on social media. How do you find a great coach? You want to find somebody that's already been to the mountaintop that you're trying to get to.
Yes. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
the whole point. It's like you can figure it out on your own. You could go climb Mount Everest on your own. Good luck. Go do it. And then maybe after you tried and failed a couple times, then maybe you'll hire somebody that knows what they're doing. And then they tell you all the stuff you need to bring and show you where all the pitfalls are, and they help you get there. And you're like, dang, why didn't I do that the first time? Right. Because you're cheap or you're stubborn or whatever, you'll
I
learn your
want to
lesson eventually.
So there are these financial advisors that they only get paid based on the products that they sell you, right?
Okay.
Well, if you were to pay a financial advisor a fee to put you in the right direction, like
Mm,
the financial advisor that we have, we have to pay a certain amount. But what's nice is I know the information that he's going to give me is right the direction I need to go. However, if I go with the financial advisor that only gets paid based on the products that he puts me in, what do you think he's going to do?
right.
He's got a
Yeah.
family.
Yep.
He's got
Exactly.
commissions.
Yep.
So, when people are like, oh man, it doesn't cost me anything. Oh, no, it's going to cost you a lot more than what you think. So if you have a coach that does the same thing, that they only get paid based on what they sell you, and they only get paid based on the affiliates that they put you into, because that's how they get paid.
Hmm.
Where do you think you're going, and
Right.
how fast do you think you're going to get there? That's
Right.
another way of thinking about the coaching model. But here's something that I want everybody to see when they're going out to get coaches is, if you own a business, to have just a business coach is not enough. That's like just having the foundational coach that just helps you with your mission and vision. And it's not bad. There's nothing wrong with them. But when you get a coach and the first thing they want to work on is your mission and vision, and you just paid them, $30,000, it's like, this is where we're starting. You know,
Hmm.
there's a lot more to take into account when you're looking for somebody to coach you.
That's interesting you say that, Chuck, because like one of the things that I've gotten from Tony is that 80% of success in anything in life is psychology, 20% is mechanics, right? So let's say somebody wanted to, that's his quote, right? So when I coach people, like I tell them, hey, look, I can give you the golden tablet of the script of what exactly to say. And just like you said, it's not just what you said, it's how you say it.
Yeah.
But there's a whole nother level of the psychology of being able to deliver it with the conviction and the certainty, right? And how are you going to do that if you don't have the confidence, and it's not just like this fake it till you make it BS type of stuff. Like the confidence comes from doing the hard things every single day. Like look how much weight like you've lost, right? It's like that discipline. And the thing is about goals, it's like it's not about the achievement of the goal that's special. It's about the man that you or woman you needed to become in order to achieve that goal. So in order to lose the weight and everything, there was a lot of psychological stuff that had to go into play with you being disciplined, going to the gym when you didn't want to, doing the things and still and working and making sure, am I pushing myself as hard, saying no to the certain things, the alcohol or the food or whatever that you wanted. And so like when it comes to like the coaching and stuff, I mean, maybe they start with the as you said, the core values and stuff like that, is because we need to get that like lined up. I went out to a company in Boise where, they brought me on for coaching to teach them the sales process. And like, I go into their kitchen and their trash can is like overflowing and their bathroom is filthy and their trash can's overflowing. And I called them out on that shit. I was like, guys, how we do anything is how we do everything. So if you're willing to overlook this, what else are you willing to overlook in the process through the installing the roof or whatever, or going through your sales process or managing your people? Like sometimes you gotta, like, if it's a glaring weakness, like, oh my God, you don't have core values. Well, guess what? We're starting here because this is the foundation.
That's fantastic. So I know we're coming up close on time. How can people get a hold of you, just to start to get to know you, start to see some of your stuff?
Okay. Appreciate that. First of all, they can go to the website, salespridecoaching.com. Right. That's the funnel, I guess, if you will. There's a little video on there that basically says, hey, the reason why you can't sell is because you suck at selling. All right. So that's basically it. And then they can book an appointment to meet with me. I always give out my personal cell phone number, so they can text me at 405-274-2326. And you can follow me. The Instagram would be at Sales Pride Coaching, and Facebook is facebook.com/Big J OKC. Big Jeremy in Oklahoma City. Big J OKC. So if they want to follow me on social.
Awesome, man. I really appreciate everything. I appreciate the friendship. I know that you and I have talked back and forth for a few
Yeah.
years now, and just the outpouring of professionalism that comes out of you, it's absolutely fantastic and it's infectious.
Well, I'm inspired by what you're doing, and I think one day we'll work with each other some way or another. Whether I'm, one of your coaches or just referring roofing clients to you. I know I've, sent some guys over to you, so I'd love to be able to figure out some sort of way we could partner or bring me on as a speaker or something like that. I'd love
We
to work with you.
absolutely will do it.
Thanks, Chuck.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. So you guys heard it. I mean, I'm going to tell you, when we bring these people on, when we bring these professionals on, we bring people like Jeremy. Like I said, I've known Jeremy for a few years now, and watching what he does, how he does it, he is just that genuine. He's going to help you out. And just the understanding when you're going to get a coach, whether it's us or Jeremy or Adam Bensman. I love Adam. Me and Adam have been talking for the last couple of weeks. I mean, he's a phenomenal coach. Becca Schweitzer. I mean, I could sit here all day and just talk about coaches all day long, but understand you need the coach that works for you, whether it's us, whether it's somebody else. You need the one that fits you and what works for you. Do you need a high octane coach? Someone like an Andy Elliott or a Uncle G, the Grant Cardones of the world. Are you looking for somebody that is a little bit more in your niche? Like for us, we stay in home improvement. We don't venture out. We're not all things to all people. This is why a lot of most of our clients, they went from 10 million to 70, 80 million. It's because we've studied it. I've already been to 220 million myself, so I know what that looks like. And so when people are looking to grow, whether they just want to go to 5 to 10, 10 to 20, we know what it looks like and we know how to get you there. But it's any coach. Now, if you own a business, you need the business coach, the financial coach, you need whatever, the sales coach, the production coach. These things cost money, and I get it. But I promise you, just like Jeremy mentioned, he spent 6,000 to make 25,000. And that was just over those couple of months that he was able to make that. And so with the right coach, you get that type of result that much faster. So just wanted to kind of point that out. Again, I want to put this out there one more time for everybody. We have the tickets on sale. They are going up in price on Friday. I promise you that. And so get it at the lowest price. Most smart people get anything that they buy at the lowest price. And so as they continue to go up, they will continue to go up until they hit $11.99, which is our retail price of that. and that'll be sometime in January when ticket prices will be $11.99 a ticket. All right, I will see everybody later, and just make sure that you become a top rep.